Among the hundreds of aim guides on the internet, still there seems to exist only a few tips that actually outplay your opponents. Most of these guides say aim train and make sure your crosshair placement is good. But where are the guides that focus on the actual techniques that pros are using to flex in their matches? The little tricks that they implement to win every gunfight. Well, today we're going to be breaking down just that. All of the actual techniques that you can use to frag out more in your matches and look like an aim god. One of the first techniques that has popped up over the last few years actually came from a player named Primi. I heard about Primi first from Dopey's video, which you should definitely check out if you want to dig into this more. What makes the way that Primi plays so unique is his use of the crouch function while peeking to offset his head height and give himself more time to land shots. Now, this is going to sound obvious, but in Valorant there are actually two factors that determine who wins a gunfight. The first is how fast you shoot your opponent. The second, though, more often overlooked, is how fast your opponent can shoot you. Now, like I said, this sounds super obvious, but basically my point is that players will often forget that you don't actually have to kill your target insanely fast, you just have to kill them before they kill you. This is where movement techniques can come in really clutch and give you that extra edge. When two players with equal aim go up against each other, oftentimes it will just come down to which one of them is the easier target to hit. This is where this crouch technique comes in handy. But you don't want to just press and hold crouch. That's actually really bad and not really a technique at all. Instead, what Primi does is when contacting angles, he will quickly press crouch as he peeks the angle and then release it afterwards to stay mobile. I'm sure you've heard that it's important to strafe during gunfights and stay mobile. That's kind of why crouching normally sucks, because you can't really strafe while crouching. But with Primi's technique, it actually gives you many of the benefits of crouching without forcing you to sacrifice much movement. Now, Primi wasn't the first one to start doing this sort of thing. Crouch peeking has been a thing forever, and years ago we even made a video on 10s spamming crouch during gunfights, much like Primi. Part of what makes what Primi is doing so special, though, is actually the speed at which he is able to pull off these micro crouches, we'll call them. You could try to pull this off with a normal keyboard, but you'll likely find that your peeks or crouches just aren't as fast as Primi's.
For example, take a look at the specific fight with Primi. It may even be hard to see, but if you slow it down, do you notice that he actually crouches here? Now compare it to my clip in the range, I actually physically cannot crouch like this. The closest I can get is if I really try to hit the key as fast as I can.
And that's because he's using a Wooting keyboard to reduce the response times of his crouch keys. Razer actually created their own competitor to Wooting recently that I believe this is also possible on, but if you're really looking to pull off this sort of thing, you're going to want the sensitivity on your crouch key to be as high as possible. That way you can not only crouch, but release the key as fast as possible, allowing you to bob up and down much more freely. This is just a technique that looks to enhance your already insane mechanics though. Primi is nutty, and even without crouching or a Wooting keyboard, or probably even a monitor, he's still going to dumpster on literally every single one of us watching this video. And that's just because his fundamentals are insane. Fundamentals always come first, before anything, and if you're looking to climb in Valorant, mastering those should be your #1 priority. That's exactly what our hour-long Aim God Masterclass looks to help you do. We'll teach you how to master all of the fundamentals of aiming, from crosshair placement, movement, positioning, and even how to aim based off of your teammate's utility, all in just one course. You'll have everything that you need to start fragging in your matches guaranteed, or your money back. That's right, our service literally promises that you will rank up 500 RR after watching our courses, otherwise you don't pay anything. If you want to see where plus 500 rating lands you, then be sure to check out our rating calculator over at SkillCapped for free. And not only all of this, but our site subscription also comes with access to our experts in Discord, who will take a look at your matches and give you personalized feedback just for you to help you grow as a player. So if you want to start looking like Primi or 10s or whoever your favorite pro is, check it out using the link in the description for a fat discount. And other than that, let's take a look at our next aim technique. This one I learned recently from professional player, coach, and analyst Trick. Definitely check out his video on Aspas if you're looking for more information on this technique. While Primi incorporates crouches often into his technique, with Aspas we are actually going to be focusing more on his corrections and strafes. Aspas isn't going to be the only player to incorporate this technique, but he is the main one that we're highlighting in this video. I want you to take a look at this clip of Aspas and take a moment on this frame to think about what you see. On screen right now, Aspas has two targets, both in very different locations. One of these gunfights he was prepared for, and one he was not. Now take a look at what Aspas does after he kills the Sova. In one swift motion, he is going to flick towards the Viper, fire off 1 to 2 shots, and at the same time, make a small but very important reposition by strafing. Now, both of these elements are super important for what we're teaching here. First, let's break down the strafe. Now, although he's playing in a deathmatch, it's important to understand that the game of Valorant is built around trades. Just straight up, it's really easy to hit a target that is standing still, and generally the time where you are most likely to get traded is going to be immediately after landing the kill yourself, because you have to be standing still. This movement after landing the kill on Sova is Aspas preemptively trying to dodge the trade from the Viper. But the other element that we want to highlight here is the initial flick that Aspas makes. Notice how Aspas quickly flicks and shoots at the Viper, despite the fact that his shots do not connect. This flick that Aspas is performing right here is based entirely on intuition. He is not taking the time to see if his crosshair is lined up right here, he just flicks and he shoots. That being said, Aspas is not committing to this shot either. Let me explain. So in the aim training community, it has been determined that within a flick, there are two very important parts. First, there is the initial flick that takes place. This is going to cover the bulk of the distance and it should be rather explosive. But a common misconception is that this initial flick is actually intended to land directly on top of the target. That is not actually the case. While it would be ideal for all of our shots to land directly on target, more commonly what you'll see after that initial flick is going to be a small micro correction onto the target's head. You flick, adjust, shoot. You do this because a very crucial part of the aiming process is the confirmation that you are indeed on target. In aim training, this is a really important thing because if you miss, you're going to lose score. If you just always rely on your intuition, your scores are going to be wildly inconsistent because some days your intuition is just going to be off. However, in Valorant, it's a bit different. You don't lose score in Valorant for firing off a shot or two. Most of the time, all you're going to lose is just a small amount of accuracy on your follow-up shots. There's actually a lot of value in what Aspas does here of just going for that intuitive flick and firing off 1 to 2 shots on the chance that his intuition was correct. For starters, if his flick was indeed correct, it could end up looking like this. But what happens if he misses? Well, firing off 1 to 2 bullets isn't going to drastically affect his recoil control, so he could still take the time afterwards to correct his crosshair and land that killing blow. But now, because he's already shot, his opponent feels they need to respond quickly, putting that pressure on. If this was an aim trainer, missing these shots is important, but it's Valorant, and as long as he doesn't start crashing out and panic spraying, it's actually not that big of a deal. You'll see Aspas does this a lot when he's caught off guard. He flicks, shoots, and corrects afterwards. If it's not exactly clear what the difference here is with a normal fight, take a look at this clip from Tomazi when he's getting ISO ulted.
Got them. I'll come up alpha. Kill him.
Now notice how when he performs that initial flick, instead of shooting right away, what you see afterwards is that following micro correction. Now to be clear, these are not bad fundamentals. It's actually the opposite. These are really good fundamentals. But the difference is that Aspas is taking a small gamble on his intuition while making sure not to sacrifice his rifle control in the process. This clip of Tomazi is honestly what we would recommend 99% of players to aim like. If you're trying to aim like Aspas and just start crashing out after every single flick and spraying, it's not going to work. But if you're able to take that shot and understand that you're not intending to kill with that initial flick, it can work out very well. Along with the techniques that we've discussed already, it's important to talk about a technique that everyone needs to understand if they have aspirations to climb in Valorant. You see, when it comes to aim in FPS games, there are 2 things that you need to focus on. The first, of course, is how you use your mouse to correct for shots. This is pretty standard and honestly what most people think about when they discuss aim. But for some, they may not realize that their movement is actually a massive part of the aiming process. And if you think about it, that only makes sense. When you move, your crosshair moves with you. This is crucial to understand if you're looking to master your aim. Something you may have noticed is that in Valorant, a lot of the time you're going to want to keep your crosshair at head level. This means that sometimes adjusting for a kill can be as simple as just taking a quick step to the left or right. In some situations, this is going to be the most simple way to land a kill. Just give it a quick strafe and shoot. This is also part of the reason that many people are able to get high scores in aim trainers, but aren't able to effectively transfer it over to game. Because in game, there are dozens of other factors that affect your aim. You're not just shooting at dots on the screen. Now, the best players are the ones that are in full control of both their WASD movement along with their mouse movement. You don't want to prioritize just one over the other. If aiming with your movement is a foreign concept to you though, try giving this exercise a shot. This is a training routine that was pushed heavily by the content creator and coach Woohoogen that works exceptionally well for players that aren't too well versed in their movement. To start out, load into the range and we're going to set the bots to spawn 30 and put our difficulty on easy. Now, when the bots spawn, what you want to do is immediately flick past the bot's head and strafe until your crosshair is on target. Then you'll shoot and repeat until finished. Once you're comfortable on easy bots, try it out on medium. This technique is a great exercise for beginners to practice aiming with their movement and get more comfortable being mobile. This sort of response of flicking and moving at the same time is very common in the game, and it's actually quite similar to what you saw from Aspas in the previous technique. When caught off guard, one of the last things that you want to do is stand still. You want it to be an automatic response to strafe and reposition your crosshair for the kill, and that's exactly what this exercise trains. If you're not able to do the moving and shooting at the same time right away either, feel free to just drop the shooting for a few rounds and just practice the movement. As the bot spawns, try to strafe in the opposite direction of where it spawned and practice this movement pattern for a bit until you get the hang of it. This is a common practice that musicians will use when trying to learn to play a piece, where instead of learning to play with both hands right away, they'll learn one hand at a time. This just lets you build up the muscle memory first and get comfortable with the action before you add in the full thing. Now, while moving and shooting is very important, I mean, every technique that we talked about today incorporates some aspect of movement, there's actually many pro players who break the mold by not complicating the aiming process. Now, we've coined the term the spider method for this playstyle, and we actually have a full course on our site detailing how to abuse this aiming technique for free kills. But basically, some players do exactly the opposite of what you think would be strong. They just plant their feet and shoot. Now, in the right situations, this can be incredibly effective. While movement is very important for dodging shots, if you're in a situation where you don't exactly have to move, the spider method can be much better.
You have to see his aim, like, look, okay, focus on his movement more than anything. His aim is crazy too, but his movement with his aim, it's like actually like perfect for Valorant. I don't know how to explain it. Like look at, as soon as he sees an enemy, he literally full stops every single time until they're dead. No, I'm sure, I think Mike is actually letting go of the key rather than pressing the AD one, but I know that, like, from watching less, that he probably does. I mean, he does one of the two, and they're both kind of the same. Like, he just stands still. I don't know. He has the ultimate Valorant movement.
This sort of movement is very jarring for many players to see because for the most part, they tend to practice things like dead zoning religiously. If you don't know dead zoning, it's the act of firing right as you switch directions, allowing you to stay mobile while still firing off accurate shots. Now, dead zoning is incredibly effective in the right situations, but it's also pretty tough to be consistent with. If I were to describe this with a chart, it kind of looks like this. On the lower end of the bell curve, you have new players who are like standing still is the best, which makes sense because you need to stand still to shoot. Then in the middle, you have all the players that are pretty good and they're like, well, moving is the best. You need to learn how to dead zone. But then I feel like you get to like the really high end of players and you run into this camp of players who are just insane by standing still. So it goes back to like standing still is insane. Now, obviously I'm half joking here. There are times to implement all of these tactics, but I think the big thing that sticks out to me here that TENS touches on really well is just the confidence. Valorant is a game where confidence is so important, and rather than complicating the aiming process, these players like Shroud are just saying, I'm going to kill that guy, and it works really well. When they're put in situations where they don't need to be mobile and dodge trades, that's when this tactic works the best. They just plant their feet and land the kill. We break this down much more in depth in our spider method course where we talk about if you have the habit of moving, this is how you stop it. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you're looking to master this style of shooting. But other than that, let me finish this off by telling you a little bit more about SkillCapped. So we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and we think that is a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like your local gym membership promising that you'll get ripped. Your gym would go bust if they offered you that. Not us though, we've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well in fact that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium Valorant guides on the internet. With over 500 guides split into over 50 courses, no one else can compare. Along with that, we also offer users direct access to our experts in the Discord so they can get personalized feedback just for them. Oftentimes, we'll even take a look at VOD reviews for you guys and give you pointers tailored just for you. So if you're really looking to climb this act, definitely check out SkillCapped using the link below. And other than that, my name's Casey and we'll catch you in the next one.